I think it's difficult, Rob, for some of the reasons Neil's mentioned in terms of what they'll have to do. My view, and I've probably always been someone who demands a little bit more from the owners than maybe what we've seen. And that's not to say they've not done a good job, because listen, lots of the success has happened on their watch. So you've got to give them, certainly a fair portion of the credit for that. But I do give the manager an awful lot of credit for the success. And I think there's been times where he has worked wonders. He has overachieved, given some of the financial sums that we've seen Liverpool spend or not spend, as the case may be. And I think for me, we've held on to one or two for a little bit too long. If you go back to after winning the Champions League, for instance, I think there was really strong cases then for moving on 2 or 3 footballers who still are at Liverpool Football Club and probably shouldn't be. And you've missed out on people like Divock Origi in terms of getting what he would have been worth then compared to what he's worth now. And obviously we've got the COVID factor as well. So all players' kind of transfer fees will be coming down unless you're an absolute kind of, superstar, Haaland, for instance, Mbappe. But even then, you've got to factor in contract situations. So I do think there's a real need to start looking at some of these footballers and move 1 or 2 on. I don't think it needs a total kind of, revamp, because I think, when everyone's back fit and fired and we've still got one hell of a football squad, I don't think it's quite at Man City's level, if I'm being honest. And I know there was a little bit of talk of that before the season started. And I think you could make cases for it, but I think we've seen, there's players at our club who just aren't adding a great deal. And I think, there will be a conversation around Naby Keita. It's his 3rd season. I mean, he's played just over 500 minutes this season. I mean, we know it's injuries. It's not necessarily a quality issue, but there's injuries there that are meaning he's not adding a great deal to the football club. Same with Oxlade-Chamberlain, just over 200 minutes this season of league football. Those 2 players, the money you paid them, the kind of cost, the outlay that you've made in terms of transfer fees, Liverpool aren't getting enough back from them, so they've got to make a decision there. And I think you could argue maybe that decision should have been made a little bit earlier. And I think sometimes if you want to, Jurgen Klopp doesn't have many weaknesses for me, but maybe one of the ones he does have is that he can be a little bit too loyal for a little bit too long with 1 or 2 players. I think Shaqiri, a lot of people laud Shaqiri. I understand why, because there's moments of brilliance within Shaqiri's game, but I don't think he should be at the football club anymore. And I've felt that for a while. I think Liverpool should have been looking to bring in younger players, not maybe necessarily ready for the first team, if I think back to kind of the summer of 2019, but lads who you'd see now start to come to the fore because maybe they've had 12 months of bedding in.
There's fairness in what Ian's saying. What I find difficult in this conversation is I don't want to criticise the business of the summer of 2019 because Liverpool won 26 out of the first 27 league games.
Neil, just on that though, Neil. Sorry to interrupt.
You're going to say Shaqiri doesn't play much of a part. You're going to...
No, what I was going to say is the season after they go and win the league title, and I think that's absolutely fine. I don't think it was ever about what happens the next 12 months. It was about what comes 3-4 years down the line. Knowing full well the squad had a number of players who were getting to an age where you've got to start replacing a lot of them at the same time.
So I agree with that, Ian, but we can't say to them, whether it's the ownership, whether it's the manager, we just want a fucking league title. And then have them make decisions that help us get a fucking league title and do it in the most unanswerable way conceivable. And then go, well, you could have done it a little bit differently. I think that's a really difficult place to be. And I think they wanted, and I think the manager wanted constancy. I think his attitude was, these lads have just won me the Champions League. They've been on this journey together. I need them to go one more time because I need to deliver this league title. So I think there's a really strong argument around the grand planning of football. But within that argument, I think you can make a massive argument in the summer of 2019. For instance, if you really want to extend it, you sell Mo Salah for a world record fee. But I don't want to sell Mo Salah for a world record fee and start rebuilding then. I want to win the league. And I think that where I do think it is, where I do feel, and again, in being sympathetic, and it's not about the ownership. I don't give a shit about the ownership. I'm talking about Gordon. I'm talking about Klopp. I'm talking about Edwards. I'm talking about the people who make the decisions at the club. I take the general, you could have you could have sold then argument. I think there's loads of validity to it if they hadn't have then delivered the league title. When they deliver the league title, for me, you've just got to almost go, well, all bets are off, lads, because you've delivered the league title.
No, I get that. And I think, and that's totally fair what you're saying. What I'm saying in the summer of 2018, I'm not saying Liverpool should have gone out and done a crazy amount of business. I'm talking about one or two lads that actually didn't contribute a great deal. If you think about Divock Origi and Shaqiri, it's identifying those players. And this is where I suppose, you know, it's easy to look back, I suppose, in hindsight. But I think it's people like myself who maybe were talking about it at the time. So it's not really hindsight.
I was talking about it as well, Ian. But my point is, they win the matches at the start of the season that win them the league, and those footballers are all at the club.
Absolutely,
okay,
but I don't think taking out a Divock Origi or a Shaqiri, for instance, changes a lot of that. It's about whether you want to win one league title, and I did, or whether you want to try and win 3 out the next 5. And I suppose that's the thing I'm driving.
I want to come back one more time, but on that, for instance, Divock comes on when we go away to Sheffield United, and he's on the pitch when Wijnaldum scores the goal, and he's been really disruptive. Does he actually do a great deal? No, he fucking doesn't. But with it, my issue with this, when I hear people sort of phrase it, is, you know, you can say, well, what did the lads, the specific players I'm saying I would have got rid of, what did they actually do? And there's real validity to that, but they were there in training. They were around the gaff. They were on the pitch when some important stuff happened. You know, the changes he makes, there's lots of people who, I was in the ground when he brought Lallana on at Manchester United, and nobody wanted Lallana to come on at Manchester United, but he rescues a point. Is there another world where he's let Lallana go because off the basis of this conversation, Liverpool don't get something out of that game, and then the title challenge begins to run out of steam? I feel as though it's so harsh to have spent years, genuinely, because it made me a hypocrite, to have spent years going, I just won a league. But by the way, the summer before you won the league, and when you twatted the league into the ground, the summer before you did it, in hindsight, I think you got the business wrong.